All right, episode 4 of Generational Talent. I'm Chris,
I'm Matthew.
and we're going to talk a little bit of a quick recap of Week 10. So going way back to last Thursday night, we missed last week's podcast. We had a lot going on. Had some personal stuff, had the election, different things. So we're back and running, going into Week 11. But let's talk about that game between the Ravens and the Bengals, which was a week ago Thursday. Came down to a 2-point conversion attempt by the Bengals, which I was totally fine with. I think
Same.
you know you go for a win on the road and a tie at home, but it's even though the Bengals aren't quite out of it, they're 4-6 with a matchup this week at the Chargers on Sunday Night Football. I mean, it's do or die for them. I think they only, you know, they're going to have to either win out or maybe one other loss if they ever want a chance to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the match against Baltimore was a really good match. I enjoyed it a lot. It was high scoring. I think it was 35-34 at the end, something like that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I won
you
my
know,
over bet.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, slam the over on that one. But both teams, both offenses looked really good. Both defenses did not look very good. Um, And I agree. I think Cincinnati made the right decision in going for two there, especially when Lamar had gone 4 straight drives with 4 straight touchdowns. You go into overtime, it's 50-50. If Lamar gets that ball, he's most likely scoring a touchdown and you lose anyways. So,
Well,
I
this is
agree
the
with
thing.
that
If you win
decision.
that game, Bengals are 5-5, Ravens are 6-4. You're right there.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
you know,
But
with
this is a must win week for the Bengals against the Chargers,
absolutely.
who are probably they're both going to be fighting for a wild card spot because the Chiefs have the West locked up, so they're both going to be fighting for a wild card, and both teams need that tiebreaker.
Another big game last week was the Steelers over the Commanders. And,
Yeah,
the Commanders just played Thursday night against the Eagles. So now they've lost two in a row. Are the Commanders coming a little bit back to, you know, coming back to earth? Or is it just a little bump in the road?
I think it's probably a little bump in the road. Number one with the Steelers and Washington game. Um, Tomlin's kind of got that Belichick stat where he's like 23-5 against rookie quarterbacks now. So veteran defensive coach, they usually do very well against rookie quarterbacks. In addition to that, the Steelers game, I think he had like 3 rushes for 5 yards or something like that.
Yeah, they
So
bottomed him up. They did not let him out of the uh, let him push up into the pocket. Talking about Daniels, they didn't let
yeah,
him push up into the pocket to be able to make those plays. They kept him bottled up, which I
I mean
noticed.
the Steelers play against Lamar twice a year, so they know what to do against a mobile quarterback. So I'm not surprised that the Steelers won that game. It was close. I think that was another like 1 or 2 point game. Um, but the Washington
Oh yeah, it was a one
versus
point game.
yeah. So and Washington's defense is not the best. It's definitely better than last year. Last year they were ranked, top bottom 3, and this year they're much better with very similar personnel. So that's definitely a Dan Quinn effect. Uh, but the game against Philly, I think it's a divisional game in Philadelphia. Um, Saquon Barkley looks like an MVP candidate. I mean, he's just rushing all over the field. He's just gashing every team he goes against.
Well,
Um,
two things that bothered me in that game, and we're talking about the Philly Washington game from
Washington,
Thursday night, is you know Washington didn't go for the field goal to take the lead late
yeah,
in that game, and then obviously Barkley, who was kind of bottled up through 3 quarters, sort of went off on that fourth quarter. But they
yeah,
get the ball back. Washington gets the ball back with about 4.5 minutes to go, down by 2 scores. It's still a 2-score game. Now, granted, they'd have to get 2 touchdowns, 2 2-point conversions, and they just slowly march the ball down the field. There's
yeah.
no real, no 2 4-minute offense, no hurry up, they're still huddling, and then they get the ball back and they do finally score with about 30 seconds to go and have to kick the onside. But I'm like, why aren't we having a little sense of urgency here, guys?
Yeah, I agree.
You're not completely out of this game. That to me, I felt like was a little bit. I don't know if Dan Quinn was just kind of like, hey, we gave it a shot. We're not going to get anybody hurt. I don't know what it was. It really bothered me at the end of that game.
They also didn't get Terry McLaurin involved at all in against the Philadelphia Eagles. Terry McLaurin's their best weapon. I think he could be potentially a top 5, top 10 wide receiver in the league. He's shown that promise, especially when
I think he is a top 10 wide receiver in the league.
Yeah, so they need to get him involved. That's a big part of their game plan, I think, every week. And I like their pony, the pony offense where they run both running backs in the backfield. I think that's cool, and I think that's interesting. My one worry is that Cliff Kingsbury run offenses are great at the beginning. The first 10 games, they look fantastic. They look, league beating, beat anybody in the league. And then the back end of the season, they kind of fall off. I don't know if other coaches figure it out, if they're one-dimensional. So that is kind of worrying, and we'll see if he's gotten over that hump or not. But that does kind of worry me a little bit about that.
Yeah, they definitely. Look at Arizona a couple of years ago when they came out to I think they were 7-1 or 8-1 or something to begin the season, and I don't even think they made the playoffs, or they just snuck in or something. But yeah, I agree. And now you got the Eagles at 8-2, Commanders at 7-4. Eagles are firmly planted right there at the top of the NFC East. It's one of those that they're basically a game and a half up now on, actually 2.5 really, because they've got to win. Now they do play again later this season, so that's.
And the Commanders still have both games against the Giants and both games against the Cowboys.
No, Commanders beat the Giants already twice.
Oh, okay. So they definitely still have both games against the Cowboys. I don't think they've played
they do.
Games against the Cowboys.
So they still have they got the Cowboys next week, and then a bad Titans team, a bad Saints team, and then the Eagles again, and then they finish against the Falcons and the Cowboys.
Yeah, so they have. I think they came in 3rd place last year. So they have a 3rd place.
No, they came in 4th place.
Okay, so they have a 4th place schedule. So it's not. It's definitely an easier schedule than what the Eagles have.
Yeah, they should thump the Cowboys.
Yeah,
they should beat the Titans.
Cowboys,
they should beat the Saints. They should win their next 3.
Yeah, I think the only game on their schedule left would be concerning would be the Falcons game.
And the Eagles again.
And the Eagles again. Sorry.
And the Eagles still have, let's see, tough game at the Rams next Sunday night on NBC. Then at the Ravens. So 2 back-to-back games. Then Panthers and then Steelers. Then Commanders, Cowboys, Giants. So, if the Commanders are going to make up any ground, they got to do it here in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. They need the Eagles
they have
to
a
lose
soccer
a couple
schedule.
Games. Yeah, they need the Eagles to lose a couple games, against the Steelers and the Ravens, hopefully the Rams. And then, they need to make up the ground by beating the Cowboys, beating teams they should beat.
Right. Another, let's go back here to Week 10. Talk real quick. So I think Buffalo's firmly in control in the AFC East. They beat Indianapolis. Should have beaten worse than they did. Kansas City somehow lucks their way into almost every win now. It's almost like they have a cheat code. It's like Madden. Oh, I'm about to lose. I'm going to pause this real quick and restart the game, or whatever. Yeah. To me, I just don't see how they can continue to win this way. I know They're undefeated, and you can't take that away from them. But at the end of the day, I'm just like,
I think some of it's luck. I mean, you can't be, you know, what, a 9-0 without luck. But at the same time, I think a lot of it is very, very good coaching. You
oh,
know,
absolutely.
if you think about all the games that have come down to the fourth quarter, I mean, Mahomes right now is the best fourth quarter comeback or best fourth quarter quarterback in the league right now. If you look at his numbers, his best quarter is the fourth quarter. You know, that's when he plays the best. He finds out how to win. And there have been two games where, you know, the offense was not clicking the best at the end. And one of them, I don't remember what the game was, but it was Chris Jones who got the sack right at the end to end the game. And then, or I think it was a run. It might have been like a fourth down stop, you know, something like that. And it was Chris Jones who got it. And then it was this game against the Broncos, and the special teams came out and got the block. So, you know, it is all three sides of the ball playing very well, you know, when they need to. They might not be playing the best at all times, but they're playing the best when they need to play the best. You know, like I said, Patrick Mahomes is playing lights out in the fourth quarter. You know, and this game is an example, though, of when he doesn't play his best, but he still wins because the team around him is that good. And I think they are, you know, I think it's criminal that Vegas has them so low in the Super Bowl odds, but I somewhat understand it because there's never been a three-peat that they kind of want to hedge their bets. And, you know.
Well, I can tell you this game this week against Buffalo might be one of the biggest games in Josh Allen's career.
Yeah.
You know, you got an 8-2 Buffalo team going up against a 9-0 Chiefs team. So if Buffalo wins, they're 9-2. Chiefs are 9-1. So now you're a half game behind with the tiebreaker. So, you know, to me, it's because after that Kansas City schedule, you got the Panthers, the Raiders, a tough game on Sunday night against the Chargers, then the Browns, a kind of Texans team who's sort of coming back to earth, and then at the Steelers, at the Broncos.
Yeah. So, and this is another thing. Yes, I agree that this game against Buffalo is a very important game for both Josh Allen and Mahomes. I think it's more important, way more important for Josh Allen. But my thing is, Buffalo's beaten Kansas City 3 out of the last 4 times they've met in the regular season. Buffalo fans, you know, and I'm glad Ethan's not here because I think he would disagree with me. But Buffalo fans, when they beat Mahomes and Kansas City in the regular season, they celebrate like they just won a Super Bowl. Kansas City doesn't celebrate when they beat Buffalo.
That's because Kansas City wins Super Bowls and Buffalo doesn't.
Exactly. You know, so this is Buffalo and Buffalo fans Super Bowl. You know, this is their Super Bowl.
I wouldn't say it's a Super Bowl, but I'd say it's, as far as, you know, I know Josh Allen's played in AFC Championship games. He's played in playoff games against Mahomes, but this is this point in his career, you know, if he wants to win the MVP, if he wants to put his team in position where potentially Kansas City has to come to Buffalo late in the season, you know, in the playoffs, in order to get back to the Super Bowl, you know, you have to win this game. And, you know, because Buffalo has the East. They have the AFC pretty much locked up. I mean, Miami's 3-6, Jets are 3-7, Patriots are 3-7. I mean, they're 4.5, 5 games ahead of everybody in the division. They're not even worried about the division anymore. They're worried about the AFC.
They're worried about how high they can get. But didn't Kansas City go to Buffalo last year?
Yeah, in the divisional
round. And Buffalo still lost. My thing is, whether they get home field advantage or not, Kansas City is their gremlin. It's their hump they can't get over. And I personally do think Josh Allen or Lamar, I think Josh Allen or Lamar are going to go down as the Peyton Manning to Mahomes' Brady. I think Mahomes will
Yeah,
be the
but the
best.
only reason that Manning is Peyton Manning is Peyton it's because he did win 2 Super Bowls and he did beat Brady in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true.
If Josh Allen can't beat Mahomes in the playoffs and can't go win a Super Bowl, he's never he's going to go down as Philip Rivers. He's not going to go down as Peyton Manning to a Tom Brady.
Yeah,
You know,
I guess you're right.
he's gonna be the guy where at least Burrow, who hasn't won a Super Bowl,
Has
has
at least
beaten
been to
Mahomes in the playoffs and
and has
been to
been
a
to a
Super
Super Bowl.
Bowl. So he's more has a chance of more being the Peyton Manning to Tom Brady. I just wish Burrow was on a team that would, they are the cheapest team in the
Oh
NFL.
my god, the only team in the league to not have an indoor practice facility,
and they are just, I just feel bad for him. I wish he was on a good team. Other big matchup this weekend, Packers at the Bears. This might be one of the biggest games in that I can remember for the Bears in a long time.
Yeah, I agree.
Bears coming off 3 straight losses. Packers have been banged up. Coming into Soldier Field, though, that's a 1:00 kickoff on Fox. But I feel like if the Bears lose this game, I mean they're done. Their season's done.
They could be
They'll be
firing
4 and
more than just
6.
their offensive coordinator at the end of the
I
season.
don't know if they'll fire their head coach just because the defense actually hasn't played that bad. And I mean, if you look at the Jets firing Saleh, and then all of a sudden the defense is just going to shit. Where at least the defense hasn't played that bad. They did fire their offensive coordinator, and I feel a little bad for Caleb because he's been put into a very tough situation. But I just wonder, and some of the things that they talked about coming into this season, with Caleb is, when there's adversity, when times get tough, is he going to be able to step up and be a leader? And I haven't seen that.
No, I agree. And I honestly, yes, I blame the offensive coordinator for some of his woes. I would 100% agree with that. The play caller, is a big part of how, as a young quarterback, you develop. But he's got the weapons. He's got the weapons. He's got a good, at least a usable running back. DeAndre Swift is good. He's had a couple really good games this year. His offensive line's not terrible. The problem is the offensive line looks worse than it is because he's holding on to the ball for too long. I think that's a big problem. And another big problem, I don't think he's a motivator. Like I remember seeing this play on I think it was like Twitter or X, I guess, where like DJ Moore is just walking off the field.
Yeah.
He
whether he thought the play was over, whether he thought the play was over or he just quit on it, I don't know. But yeah, he just walks off the field.
Yeah, so I don't know if that's coaching or if that's not believing in Caleb Williams. But I mean, Caleb Williams, people, there are veterans supposedly, obviously this is reports. There are veterans in the locker room who want Tyson to be playing over Caleb.
Well, see,
that can be that you could lose a locker room quickly.
And I've had, obviously we have a connection to Tyson being from the Martinsburg area, West Virginia. He went to high school here, went to college in Shepherd. You're the same college you went to, university you went to. Me and your brother went to his first game. I know his dad. I'd love to be able to get him on the podcast one day. But yeah, so Sports Talk Radio up there is calling for Tyson to play. I've had several friends text me, ask me about it. I said, and to me, there's absolutely no way that Tyson is going to be playing unless Caleb gets hurt.
Yeah.
And
no, I
when I
agree.
say get hurt, it could be get hurt. Like he could have, a nicked up injury where he doesn't start. Obviously, it's not going to be, this week against the Packers. But this is the thing. If they lose, they're 4-6. They're then 3 full games behind the Packers.
Yeah.
And the Vikings play are the Vikings off this week? Who do the Vikings play? Yeah, I think they're off. So 3 full games behind the Bears. And I mean, I just don't see how you make it in the playoffs.
Well, and my biggest thing is, like I was saying, yes, you can blame some of Caleb Williams not
No,
being as good.
Vikings play Tennessee.
Oh, you can blame some
So
of what
pretty much a
Caleb
bye
Williams
week.
is doing. Yeah, to the offensive coordinator, and they fired him. But in addition to that, I think it's been 23 or 25, 28, somewhere in there, straight drives without a touchdown. That's kind of big.
They haven't scored a touchdown since they scored the touchdown against the Commanders right before the Hail Mary.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like 23 or 25, 28, somewhere in. I can't remember the exact number. But, X amount of, 25 straight drives without a touchdown. That's disastrous. That is, a big deal in my opinion. You have to be able to score touchdowns.
Yeah, and I mean, and they lost to, really badly to my Patriots.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about leadership? Drake May asked the coaching staff to be able to speak to the offense before that Bears game, to be able to speak to the team, to the offense, and basically said, listen, I need to be better in practice. We all need to step up. We all need to get better, do the little things. Getting back to the, do your job. If you do your job, don't worry about everybody else's job, then things happen. And then, they go out, this is after a couple of weeks after Gerard Mayo calls the team soft, and all of a sudden they've won 2 out of their last 3.
Yeah.
And they should have beat the Titans. So yeah, I mean, they're starting to get it turned around, and
sucks for your draft pick, but at least shows promise.
Well, it sucks for the draft pick in one sense, but also, it can help in free agency.
Yeah.
Because if free agents go, hey, I want to play there. I can see that you're building something. I want to go play with Drake May. Then that makes a difference. But I think the leadership is drastically different with a Drake May over Caleb.
Well, and I mean, personally, right now, I think Caleb looks like the 4th best quarterback this draft. I mean, I think by far and away, Jaden Daniels is number 1. And then, whether it be Bo Nix, probably Bo Nix just because he's had more reps. And then Mayo just beat him.
May.
May just beat him. And then Caleb, and who knows about JJ when he comes back? Who knows how well he'll play?
Well, and you got JJ and you got Penix.
Yeah. So Caleb Williams.
We don't know anything about.
Yeah.
And they're rookies. It's way too early to. You're not. Listen, we're not putting Jaden in the Hall of Fame, and we're not saying anybody's a bust. It's way too early to say any of that. But at the end of the day, yes, I think obviously Jaden has looked the best. He's, unless they completely collapse, more than likely going to get their team in the playoffs. Bo Nix and the Denver, I feel like they're probably going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'd agree.
They do look good. Yeah, then I think Drake May is right there. In the 4, kind of 3.5 games he's played, he's looked good. So, Now we have a big matchup this week against your Rams,
Yeah. It's a big
who
matchup.
got their asses kicked last week.
Yeah.
What happened there?
Annoying is what it was. Second game in Matt Stafford's Rams career history where he hasn't thrown a single touchdown. That's really what happened. The defense played great, lights out. I mean, we had, we were the first drive. They had a great first drive, and I'll admit that. It was like a 4 or 5 play, 70, 80-yard touchdown. And that was a very touchdown drive, and that was a very good drive. But after that, I mean, we were getting turnovers, we were getting stops. We just could not generate anything on the offense. It's the biggest frustration with that game is, I can understand why we lost some of the games very early in the season. We didn't have our players. We were missing lots of players. But now we've got most of them back. The only major miss the only major person we were missing last week against Miami was Rob Havenstein, which, don't get me wrong, he is our best offensive lineman. He's our right tackle. He's our best offensive lineman, or at least the oldest, like the most veteran. But he's been there since St. Louis days. So I understand, like, we're missing him, but Joe Noteboom is a good backup. He is not a bad backup. And so my biggest thing is we had everybody. What happened? The offense couldn't get clicking. And I think some of that was we did bring 2 offensive linemen back the same week. We brought Jonah Jackson and Steve Avila back. And, the offensive line didn't look like it was clicking. And I think Jonah Jackson, he was playing center, and we got rid of our rookie center. We replaced him with Jonah Jackson when Jonah Jackson was not injured, which I think was the right move. But in hindsight, maybe it wasn't, because our center, rookie center, Lemur, I think is his name, something like that, looked really way better than what Jonah Jackson did. There was too many botch snaps, and the offense. I mean, before this game, the last 2 or 3 games in a row, we hadn't led a single sack. Matt Stafford hadn't been sacked once in 2 or 3 games in a row. I think it was the Minnesota game, and then the game against who did we play on Thursday? It was a quick turnaround that we beat. It was the Raiders, and then we beat Minnesota on Thursday night, and then I can't remember who we played Sunday. But the Minnesota
Seahawks?
game in that. Yeah, the Seahawks game. Thank you. The Minnesota game and the Seahawks game, we didn't let a single sack through. And then against Miami, it was like we didn't have pass blockers. So it was very annoying, and I'm hoping we can turn it around against the Patriots.
You guys are 4.5-point favorites. But you're coming all the way to the East Coast for a 1:00 game against the Pats. A Pats team that, I fully expect to lose this game. I do think it's going to be a good game. I don't think we're going to get blown out.
Yeah.
Our defense has definitely stepped up and looked better. There's a rumor that Barmore may be getting activated. I don't think he'll play versus the Rams tomorrow, this week. But, to get a Barmore back, who is probably our best defensive lineman. I mean, he's been out with blood clots since training camp. So he did practice this week. I'm reading here he could play a limited role versus the Rams. We just cut our second round pick from
last year,
a few years ago. Thornton. Just another bad Belichick receiver pick. He ran the fastest, that year in the combine, fastest 40. But just because you run a fast 40 doesn't make you a good wide receiver.
No, I agree. With the Rams, I'm hoping that the more reps with that new offensive line helps. They only had 1 practice before that Sunday night game, or Monday night game, sorry. So So I'm hoping more reps will help with that. But the Rams don't have an easy schedule. You know, we have the Patriots and the Saints, Patriots this week. Then we have Eagles, like you were mentioned earlier, which is not an easy game. Saints, which we should win. Then we go against the Buffalo Bills, who are a top 5 team. San Francisco, who should have all their players back by week 15. The Jets, who should be a win because the Jets are looking terrible.
And a very tough Cardinals team.
And then the Cardinals team, who's tough, and then the Seahawks team, who's tough.
Yeah.
So we don't have an easy schedule.
Three out of your last 4 games are going to be tough.
Yeah.
You know, actually, 4 out of your last 5.
Yeah. So, you know, the Rams have a tough schedule. I believe, you know, from what we did last year, I believe that we can make the playoffs. I'm concerned, but I'm not worried yet. But I will tell you what, I am very, very happy with Jared Verse. I think
Jared Verse is going to be Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah.
In my opinion. But, you know, this is, I mean, I'm looking at your schedule, and now, granted, you're 4-5, Arizona 6-4, so it's not like anybody's running away with your division.
Yeah.
But looking at your schedule, because after this you got the Eagles, and then, you know, Saints, Bills, 49ers. Like, this is almost a must-win game for you guys.
100%. I thought Miami was a must-win game, but
well, I mean,
I think Miami was a must-win game to win the division. I think it's going to be tough to win the division. Now, we have to beat Arizona later this year because they have the tiebreaker over us right now.
Yeah.
We can drop maybe one more game.
Yeah.
And it has to be against a good team like the Bills.
And the playoffs started right now. You guys are in 10th. So, you know, actually, Commanders are the 7th seed right now.
Yeah.
But that's before, you know, the rest of the games this weekend. But yeah, I mean, it's a must-win game for you guys.
No,
so does that add some pressure? You know, coming across the country. You know, now the weather's going to be good. The weather's going to be decent. So that's, you know, it's not like you're coming to a, you know, super cold, snowy. Look, it's 59 degrees and sunny. So, you know, not like the Ravens game we went to last year where, you know, it's rainy and cold and Rams still played really well in that game.
Yeah. I mean, that was the one game they lost in like 8 games. That back end 8 or 9 game stretch. They lost one game and it was against the Ravens. So, yes, it depends on the player. Do I think Cooper Kupp or even Puka Nacua or Matthew Stafford is nervous over this game? No. They did this last year. Especially Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. They won a Super Bowl. They won playoff games. They know what it takes. They've literally won a Super Bowl. They know what it takes to get there. But some of the younger players, some of the rookies, you know, maybe Jared Verse and Braden Fisk specifically, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see how they play this game. It could be, but I really don't think so. I think Jared Verse is just a competitor. He is just a football player. He chirps and he gets into people's head and he just goes to work, in my opinion. So I don't think it will affect us very much. My biggest annoyance or my biggest fear, in all honesty, is Sean McVay going to get over this hiccup he's had in the last you know, in this season in general when it comes to calling. I don't think this has been his best season when it comes to offensive calling. And I hope that he can get over that and get back to what he was so good at.
Well, I'm also sitting there looking at the playoffs of the AFC, and I'm not saying that the Patriots are going to make the playoffs, but guess what? They're 3-7. The Broncos right now have the 7th seed at 5-5.
Yeah, everybody's talking about how Miami's a potential playoff team, and they're 3-7.
Miami's 3-6.
Oh, 5-6.
But this is the thing: if we beat the Rams, which is a big if, we're at the Dolphins, and then we have the Colts.
Yeah.
So, you know, let's just say they get hot, and you get a couple wins going. 4 or 5. If you're 6-7 and they still haven't even played the Bills yet, and don't get me wrong, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I said 6 is their ceiling, on what they can win. But hey, stranger things have happened in this league.
I agree. I mean, I think the Jags made the playoffs, and they were a couple years ago, and they were 2-7.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I'm not making any predictions, but
yeah,
if they beat the Rams, if they beat the Rams, which is a big if, who just has, and I'm saying that, and they only have one more win than the Pats do. Yeah, but that's a big if. Then you just never know. I mean, that's why I love this league. It's crazy. All right, moving on. Another big game this weekend. As we talked about, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore at the Steelers. And for some reason, which defies logic, this is a 1:00 game.
Yeah, I was my best friend is a Steelers fan, and he was like, "Man, I wish that some sort of playoff or some sort of football god could have moved this to a Sunday or Monday night game." But Pittsburgh's already played a lot of primetime games this year.
So is Baltimore.
And Baltimore has.
So Baltimore's favored by 3.5.
This is for the division. This is for the lead in the division. Yeah, for the lead in the division.
Absolutely, and also, potentially, you've also got, seeding, not just division, but potential seeding. Baltimore 7-3. If they want any chance of, potentially getting that number 1 seed, obviously they're going to need to probably win out.
If they want the chance for the number 1 seed, well, they
have the tiebreaker over the Bills, but they don't over the Chiefs.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what I was trying to say. Sorry.
But after this, I mean, the Ravens, they're at the Steelers, and then at the Chargers on Monday night, and then the Eagles at home versus the Eagles, and then at the Giants, which should be a win, and then the Steelers come to Baltimore for a 4:30 game, and then at the Texans, and then the Browns. So, I mean, the Ravens do not have an easy schedule down the stretch.
No, I agree. And just a quick side note about the Ravens in general. Man, this season has felt long. I feel like it, even though it's flown by, I feel like that loss to the Raiders in Week 2 was so long ago. Because when they were 0-2 and they were, people were concerned that they could be, maybe not as good as they were last year. But how they've turned that around. But yeah, I agree. I think this is a very important game for both teams. And I personally think Baltimore win this game. I think it'll be very close. I think it'll be very similar to the Baltimore Bengals game. It will probably be high scoring. My only thing is the only concern, in my opinion, is I think Baltimore's offense is significantly better than the Steelers' offense. But I think the Steelers' defense matches up better with the Ravens' offense than the Ravens' defense matches up with the Steelers' offense.
That's what this is going to come down to. Is the Steelers' defense going to be able to shut down not just Lamar this time, but Lamar and Henry? And like you said, they, playing Jaden Daniels is, some similar styles to a Lamar. But the Commanders didn't have Derrick Henry in the backfield either. Right. So it's a two-headed monster coming right at you. And are they going to be able to slow that down? Because the Ravens defense, especially the back end of the Ravens defense, their secondary is atrocious.
So it reminds me of the Eagles defense, the back end of the Eagles defense last year. It's just so bad.
Well, and Russell Wilson has not discovered, but
reacquired,
kind of hit a little bit of that fountain of youth, and he can hit those little dime
boom
passes where
balls.
he just, those raindrops where he just drops it in,
Yep.
to Pickett and stuff. Which George is he's loving this.
Oh, 100%.
So,
Yeah.
as much as they talked about how much they loved, you know, who was the quarterback before?
Justin Fields or Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, Justin Fields. As much as they love Justin Fields, and he's young and he's, gets along with the teammates and everything else, I think they're, I mean, and when you're winning, it makes things a lot easier. But Russell Wilson's definitely found that fountain of youth.
No, I agree.
So,
And
yeah, this is, I can't believe it's a 1 o'clock game. This is a big time game. Well, I can't believe they didn't even move it to like a, now I know you got you got the Bills and the Chiefs, so I mean I guess they didn't want to move it against that. And then Sunday night is Bengals at Chargers. So and the thing is, you can't just move every game. So you have to a couple weeks out. What happens is, the networks will block certain games from getting moved to Sunday night or stuff like that. So, yeah,
I think it'll be a good game though.
I mean, I think that's that game and the Kansas City Buffalo game, the 2 games of the week.
I'd agree.
If you ask me, and I'd say probably Chicago and Green Bay at Chicago is probably
good runner-up.
The third biggest game of the week. And then you got, Seahawks at 49ers, which big implications in the AFC West. 4-5 Seahawks team against a 5-4, which I feel like the 49ers are starting to sort of get their act together. We'll see.
Getting their players back.
We'll see what that ultimately looks like. If there's any chance of the 49ers winning that division, I mean, this is a must win also, for either squad. But the 49ers, because after this week, they got at the Packers, at the Bills, so, I mean, they have to win this week, get to 6-4 before 2 tough games against 2 tough opponents in 2 tough places to play. Before, then they play the Bears at SoFi, the Rams at not SoFi, Levi, and then the Rams at Levi. And then they finish the season at the Dolphins, tough game versus the Lions, and then the Cardinals, which could potentially be for the division. So,
yeah. No, I agree. I think
know you don't want to hear that.
Teams must win for them. No, I agree. I'm probably rooting for rooting for Seattle because I mean, I hate 49ers. They're my least favorite team in the league. Doesn't mean that I don't think they've got great players.
For Seattle. Yeah, you should be rooting for Seattle because if Seattle wins, they're 5-4. San Francisco's 5-4, and you guys, if you beat New England, you're 5-4, and Arizona's on a bye.
We have the tiebreaker currently. Obviously, we have to play them again. But currently, we have the tiebreaker over both Seattle and San Francisco. So
right.
And then the very last game of this week is the battle for Texas. I think it might be a slaughter. I think it might be a slaughter for Texas.
I said before the season that I thought the Texans would come back to earth a little bit, and then obviously early in the season, they were looking really good, really dominant, but they've sort of come back to earth a little bit. But yeah, Cowboys are god awful.
Yeah.
And what's funny is right now they'd have the 11th pick in the draft. And almost every mock draft I've seen, taking Ashton Genty out of Boise State, the running back, which if you haven't seen highlights of him, go watch it.
Yeah.
He is a beast. He's like a Derrick Henry Jr. Mixed with a little Barkley. He is a beast. But yeah, that's what they absolutely need. Now, even if you have the best running back, you still got to block for him, and their line is garbage. So, Dak's out for the season. Yeah,
this is
I mean,
this is my thing. I think McCarthy will be fired at the end of the season, or not brought back. Because I think he's in a lame duck year where he just doesn't have a contract. So I don't think he's coming back. And then the defense doesn't look good. Dan Quinn left, and the defense doesn't look good, and the offense doesn't look good at all. They don't really have players. I don't think Dak is even a top 15 quarterback anymore. He's and now he's becoming somewhat injury prone. I think they have 2 star players, 2-star or very good players in CeeDee Lamb and Micah Parsons. I think Lawrence is very good. I don't think he's a star player.
No.
Other than those 2, they don't have anybody else who is, in my opinion, a top 10 or top 15 player at their position. They are not good. Point blank are not good. They will not be good for the next couple of years.
Well, it's hard to say that because you can turn us, look at the Commanders, number 2 overall pick, and, now they're competing for the playoffs in the division. So in the NFL, you can go from first to worst very easy.
My concern, though, is what coach is going to want to come coach there. You're going to have Jerry Jones constantly meddling, and you're going to have a $65 million quarterback you're strapped with.
Listen, you're gonna have coaches because it's the Dallas Cowboys. But I agree with you. And every Cowboys fan I talk to, including your brother-in-law, but every fan I talk to all say, I can't wait for Jerry Jones to die.
Yeah.
Which is morbid and, whatever, but.
Or at least just not run football anymore.
Yeah.
Which I don't think he ever will.
I mean, I think it'll have to get to the point where the family just has to tell him, like, hey, you need to step aside. Obviously, they're not there. And his son, Steven, is the heir apparent to take over. But at the end of the day, until you can stop him, he's not just a meddling owner, he's a GM.
Yeah. That's the problem is, like, not only are meddling owners bad, yes, look at the Jets. Okay? The Jets have a meddling owner, and they are
look at all the years with Snyder.
Look at all the years with Snyder. Look at the Raiders. Okay, so a meddling owner is bad, yes. But when that meddling owner is also your GM, it's terrible. I mean, he goes on that show every Tuesday and talks about shit, and it just doesn't look good, and it doesn't make you're not interesting players. Players are not going to want to come and play for you when you go on your radio talk show and slam your players that are there for you, that work for you. It's just not.
When you say players don't want to go there, they don't try to attract free agents.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, they don't go out and try to sign people.
They don't have the money.
Yeah.
We didn't have the money. Derrick Henry wouldn't have been a good fit.
The NFL is, it's like a credit card. You can pay for it if you want to. I mean, you're going to have to pay the bill eventually. But
I know about that.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm looking at their schedule, like, Texans, and then at the Commanders, and then the Giants, which
I don't even know if that's a win.
You can't guarantee that yet. And then the Bengals, and then at the Panthers, who are actually playing a little bit better right now.
I don't even know if that's a win.
And then the Bucks on a Sunday night. Then at the Eagles, and then home against the Commanders to end the season.
So out of all of those games, if you put the Cowboys against all those teams, how they're playing right now, obviously, Jaden Daniels could get injured, and then Washington's going to look different. But if you're talking about how they're playing right now, the only game I think they have a somewhat chance in is the Giants game. I think the Panthers are playing way better than the Cowboys are.
Well, I'm looking at the ESPN,
Odds.
matchup predictor, and the only game that they're actually predicted to have a chance to win is the Panthers game. Actually, no, Panthers are favored.
That's why I would say, yeah, the Panthers are probably favored because they're playing better.
Yeah, they're underdogs in every game the rest of the season.
Yeah.
So
I could see them easily losing now.
Yeah, they could go. I mean, they could go 3-14, and at that point, you've got a top 5 pick.
3 pick, yeah. Problem is, are you going to draft a quarterback when you just signed Dak Prescott to the biggest deal in NFL history?
No, they're not signing a quarterback.
Yeah,
and they're probably that high. They're not going to draft Genty. So either you draft the best tackle, offensive lineman, or you trade back to a quarterback needy team to try to build out the rest of your team.
I mean, my thing is they're strapped with a expensive, aging, injury-prone quarterback, a meddling GM/owner, a new coach next year, a brand new coach who probably isn't going to be the best hire that they could get if they looked more promising, because they're not going to attract the best coach because no one's going to want to go there because they can't win a Super Bowl within the next couple of years, in my opinion. Yeah, they're going to have a high draft pick, but what does that mean? If like you just don't have the opportunity, in my opinion. They don't have the opportunity to be able to look. I don't think they're going to look good next year.
I'm not going to disagree with you.
I agree you can turn it around in 1 year. I mean, the Texans did it, and the Cowboys, or Commanders did it, but they did it with rookie quarterbacks. That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. Well, the Bengals did it with Burrow,
and he was a rookie quarterback. Like all of these teams who turn around in 1 year, quote unquote, do it with a brand new coach usually and a brand new quarterback.
Your Rams did it, making a trade for Stafford.
Yeah. But we already had all the pieces. We had Jalen Ramsey, Donald, Cooper Kupp, a good offensive line.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys, the problem is
they just don't have the pieces.
Are they? I don't think that their ego will allow them to go into a full rebuild.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree with that.
So
I think they might be forced. They're like the only reason they're playing. They're going to have a top 5 draft pick potentially this year is because they were forced to due to a quarterback injury.
Yeah. So I think we touched on pretty much all the top games this week. Bengals at Chargers. I think it's going to be a good game. Other than that, the Detroit should wally mop the Jacksonville. Then you got tank bowls like Cleveland at New Orleans. Minnesota should beat Tennessee, even though Tennessee's got a really good defense. Another tank bowl and Indy at the Jets. Good game. Atlanta at Denver.
Richardson starting that game.
Good.
Yeah, Colts said they're putting him back in.
So I think some good matchups, but obviously we hit on the top ones. All right.
No, I agree.
Guess what? We've got a top 5 this week. Top 5. We talked a lot about rookies this week, and you've got we talked about how Jaden and Bo Nix and Penix and stuff, not Penix, Drake and stuff are having good seasons. So top 5 all-time rookie NFL seasons. You want to go first? Or you want me to go first? Usually you go first.
I was going to say usually I go first, but most of my guys are I only have one older guy on my list, so I'll let you go first because you probably have some more older guys that you grew up watching. So most of mine all of mine I have seen play in my lifetime, except for one.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. So let me look here. Number 5 on my list is Dan Marino. Now Dan Marino came in 1983. He was in that great draft class. You talk about one of the top NFL quarterback draft classes of all time. Go look up that 1983 draft class. But had one of the best rookie seasons. Dan Marino, who I consider to be probably the best quarterback to never win a Super Bowl, only made it to one, and that was in his second season. Lost to San Francisco, never made it back again. But now he threw 20 touchdowns to only 6 picks, which back then was, compared to today, obviously that's not that great, but back then that was a stellar season. So Dan Marino's number 5 for me. Number 4 is C.J. Stroud. Now, what C.J. Stroud did last year, obviously, and I've said this before, Ohio State quarterbacks, go look it up. Ohio State quarterbacks coming in the NFL have never done anything. They've all been busts or, on the bench, backups. They've never done well in the playoffs, never won a Super Bowl as a starter. So what C.J. Stroud did last year, now getting to the second round of the playoffs, rookie of the year, to me, I just have to put him right there. Number 3, one of the most electric players I've ever seen play, and just went into the Hall of Fame, and that's Devin Hester. His 2006 season, he had an NFL record 5 return touchdowns. He had 600 yards, led all punt returners to 600 yards and three touchdowns, and helped take that Chicago team that was not that good very far. Number 2, and you'll like this one. 1983, talk about the 1983 draft class, from the Los Angeles Rams of Anaheim. That's where they played. Eric Dickerson. He had 2,212 yards, 2,212 yards from scrimmage as a rookie and 20 touchdowns. You talk about somebody, he averaged 113 yards a game. I mean, to me, that you can't compare that. But my number 1, 1999, West Virginia boy, who I think is the greatest receiver of all time, Randy Moss. And, he went with the 17th pick, and he was so upset because he thought he was going to the Cowboys. And the Cowboys actually told him before the draft that they were taking him if he was there. And they passed on him. And he went to Minnesota. Randall Cunningham was the quarterback. They should have went to the Super Bowl that year. They lost on a last-second field goal miss in the AFC Championship game to the Dirty Bird, Atlanta Falcons, who went on to get just roasted by the Denver Broncos that year in the Super Bowl. And that would have been a great game. Go look up the highlights from the Thanksgiving game against the Cowboys. He caught 3 passes for 163 yards and 3 touchdowns. I mean, just talk about breaking onto the scene and being dominant. To me, I know Jerry Rice is considered the greatest wide receiver of all time, statistically and everything else, but to me, Randy Moss is my favorite wide receiver of all time.
Yeah.
All right, Matthew.
So I actually was looking at brought my list up just because I have it in notes. I actually have two players that I never saw play, so that's my fault. But I'll start with my honorable mentions. My honorable mention is Dan Marino. He's just off my list at number 6. I agree. He is the best quarterback who's ever best quarterback, potentially the best player to never win a Super Bowl. Number 5 on my list is, in my opinion, the man who started, not started, but redefined what it is to be a dynamic, multi-threat quarterback, and that's Cam Newton. He had the Heisman coming out of Auburn. He won Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year, and he threw. I think he threw for. I have it in my notes. Yeah, so he threw for more than 400 yards in his first 2 games. He finished with more than 4,000 passing yards and more than 20 touchdowns. He had a quarterback record at the time, 14 rushing touchdowns. So dual threat, redefined what it is. I think Michael Vick was like the predecessor, but Cam Newton was really the trendsetter.
Yeah, Cam was like a linebacker playing quarterback.
Yeah, exactly. Number 4 is somebody on your list as well, and that's Eric Dickerson for the same reasons. I mean, just dominant from the first snap he played, just dominant. Over 2,000 rushing yards, like you said. I think it was like over 2,600 scrimmage yards in total. And like 20-ish touchdowns. And he's in LA, a Rams player. So
they were in LA in '83.
Yeah, so LA. Okay.
They just played in Anaheim.
Yeah. You're right. Number 3 is another dual threat quarterback. I think the best dual threat quarterback. His rookie year, he was the best dual threat quarterback until Lamar, and that's RG3. I think if he would have learned how to slide, if he would have the Nationals literally told him, come to our camp, we will teach you how to slide properly. That was his biggest downside. Let me bring up my notes. He led the league. He led the league in both yards per attempt as a passer and yards per attempt as a rusher in the same season, in his rookie season. Just absolute stud. I mean, he was great. But the season, or the not career-ending knee injury, because he did go on to play for Baltimore. But
career-altering.
Yes, that's a good career-altering injury. I think if he didn't get that, if he would have learned how to slide, I think he would have been. He would have gone on to be one of the best dual threat quarterbacks of all time. Number 2 is your number 1, and I completely agree with you. He is my favorite wide receiver as well, and that's Randy Moss. For the exact, like I said, same reasons. I think him and Randall Cunningham were one of the most dangerous quarterback wide receiver combinations in the NFL at the time. Over 1,000 yards over 1,000 yards receiving, 18 touchdowns his rookie year, something like that. Just elite, and I agree. He is definitely the best wide receiver to never win a Super Bowl. I think personally, he's better than Jerry Rice, in my opinion. I think he's the best wide receiver to ever play the game. Number 1, I'm pretty sure the only player on both of our lists that was a defensive player, Lawrence Taylor. The only player in all of NFL history to win both Defensive Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. He had 9.5 sacks his rookie year. The Giants won. They ended up winning more, like significant. I think it was like 5 or 6 more games the year that they drafted him than the year before, and he would go on to be the best defensive player
Well,
to ever play in the game.
yeah, to me, in my opinion, he's the best defensive player I've ever seen play, and he turned around that Giants franchise.
Exactly, and I think that's a pick. That's one of those. That's one of those picks where it's like one pick changed a team significantly, and it was a pick. He changed that team so significantly from a role or from a position that is significantly harder to do than a quarterback. You know what I
Well,
mean?
he played multiple positions.
But
He played
I
because you could put him on the end, you could put him at outside linebacker, you could
no,
put him in the
but
middle if you needed to. Like he was such a dynamic threat.
yeah,
Um,
I agree. But what I'm saying is like a quarterback, one pick can change a team. We've said that multiple times this week or this podcast. But most of the time, that one pick is a quarterback.
mhm.
C.J. Stroud, Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, all these quarterbacks that helped their team become what they are today. Lawrence Taylor is not a quarterback. He is a defensive player. Defensive players do not shine as brightly as offensive players. Now, I know back then they did more. Defense was more impactful than it is today. But I think not only is he the best defensive player to ever play, I think he's got the best, in my opinion, the best rookie season.
Yeah, and I will tell you this: he changed offenses.
Yeah,
Like Joe Gibbs had to put two tight ends. Come up with these two tight end packages on one side in order to be able to chip Lawrence Taylor.
yeah,
So he changed the way that offenses had to adjust and play in order to be able to you know keep up with him. So yeah, I agree. He's um, to me, he's the best defensive player of all time.
yeah. But I
Um,
also think he won Defensive Player of the Year and Defensive Rookie of the Year in the same, his first year, and he had nearly 10 sacks. So,
yep.
he put the fear of God in quarterbacks from the day he entered
Um, so real quick, hit on the Tyson Paul fight.
the league. Oh yeah, yeah.
I tell you what, I stayed up. I watched it with your brother, but you know, Mike Tyson growing up was my favorite boxer. I don't think he's the best boxer of all time. I think Muhammad Ali is, but Mike Tyson was the most dominant in his prime, probably the most dominant fighter especially heavyweight, that I've ever seen. First time I ever won money off of your grandfather was a Mike Tyson fight. I bet him $10 when I was 10 or 11 years old that he would beat Michael Spinks, which he did in 91 seconds. Um, Knocked him out. So, and this is the thing. He's 50-6 all time with 44 KOs. Think about that. So, but no, it was kind of a boring fight. Mike didn't have his legs, but 57 years old. I get it, going against a 27-year-old. I'm not a big Logan Paul, Jake Paul fan. Like I've obviously I know who they are. Your little brother loves Prime. Every time we go to Target, so they've done a good job in marketing and everything.
I agree.
When he sees the red, white, and blue Prime, he calls it Captain America Prime.
Yeah, that's funny.
So, but no, I mean, I think, and then Netflix, obviously, and getting back to football, Netflix had lots of issues. I had to plug the Apple TV directly in, hardwire it, because it was not, the streaming was crashing. And they have two games, I think, on Christmas Day.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I
they
think they
better
have the
fix.
Steelers game, the Steelers and Chiefs game. I'm pretty sure it's on Netflix.
They better fix some of these problems. Hopefully, this was like a sort of test run before we get to,
Yeah, they have the
NFL football.
They have the Steelers and Chiefs, and they have the Ravens and Texans on Christmas Day.
Yeah, so those are big games.
No, I 100% agree.
Um,
I agree. I think Mike Tyson's, he looked old. He looked slow. I mean, I think I saw the stat for like the 7th round, and it was Tyson had thrown like 56 or 59 throws, and Jake Paul threw 200, and like it was at the same time as I think it was at the beginning of the round 7 when they showed the stat. And so, Jake Paul had thrown 200 and Mike Tyson had thrown 50 some, 55.
Well, you could tell Tyson was looking for an opening to try to knock him out.
Yeah.
But Jake just danced around and just wore him down.
Way younger, I agree, the legs.
Yeah. But 2-minute rounds helped Tyson, but a bigger ring helped Paul.
Yeah.
So it was one of those. But yeah, it was interesting, and I wish we would have saw something sort of, spectacular, but unfortunately,
I wish Mike Tyson would have knocked him out. I think that would have been really cool and fun. But
well, for us old guys, it would have been definitely something to brag about. He's 10 years older than me, so like I said, I remember watching him as a kid, and he was fun. But and I'm sure if he would have gotten a hold of him.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. I think,
but Jake just danced around enough and wore him down that it was kind of boring. So anyway, I think that's all we got for this week. I want to appreciate everybody who's been following us. We're getting some new supporters. I've had some people reach out and talk about how much they like the podcast. If you like it, please just do me 3 things. Give us a like, comment in the comment section that helps the algorithm, and share it with a couple friends that you think like talking sports and football and that sort of thing too. And we try to come from different perspectives. That's why we call it generational talent, because you've got an old and a young perspective, and we try to talk about not just one team but several different teams throughout the league. And so we appreciate you watching, and we'll be back next week, back on schedule for a new podcast talking about the Week 11 matchups and getting ready for Week 12. So until then, my name's Chris.
My name's Matthew.
And we'll catch you next week.
Thanks for watching.